Thank you very much and a very warm welcome to all of you and good afternoon. Let's have some energy. Clap, clap. Thank you. Request from the panel ladies is, आप जो पीछे बैठे हैं, please आगे आ जाइए. We like to see you. It's not very nice to talk to empty chairs. So young boys and girls, please come in the front quickly. Please come in the front. आप पीछे से नहीं जा पाओगे. हम ज़रा बंद कर रहे हैं. Please come in the front. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, here we go. Delighted to be here, and thank you very much for inviting me, the college, to moderate this brilliant panel here. We have such fabulous names here. We have Minnie, Vaid, Kaveree Bamzai, Nandita Om Puri, and Harshali Singh. Give it up for them, please. A warm welcome on behalf of the very warm Nagpur city. I'm so delighted to be amongst such a galaxy of intellectual stars, authors, poets, academicians, thinkers, and role models. Welcome. And since we have such dynamic ladies amongst us, let us begin, as we have less time and so much more to listen to and learn from you. At the very outset, I have been hearing this woman empowerment for last so many years. I still don't understand what does it entail. How do we define this? The terminology woman empowerment is big. So I'd like to invite you that how would you define it? And I'd like to begin with you, Kaveree.
I think it's a gigantic call. I think it's a gigantic con that has been exercised on women just to make them feel like they're having it all while they're actually doing it all. And I think during the pandemic, it's only become worse. We've realized we work from home, we work in the home, we work for the family, we do everything possible. There's no distinction, there's no such thing as a gender divide in terms of division of labor. So it really is a whole lot of people telling you to lean in when actually what we should be doing is leaning out and leaving our families out to dry for maybe a couple of days and letting them feel what it's like when the woman of the house is not there, which is why I'm here, by the way, rather than doing this online and on Zoom. But seriously, I think, our mothers have been doing it all for years and years and years without really having it all. And I think this generation of women especially knows exactly how much they sacrificed and how much they gave up of their public lives so that we, this generation, and I think I would say that we are perhaps one of the first of our generation to try and have it all, as we were told by men like Bharat Dabholkar in all their wonderful ads when they said, you've come such a long way, baby. And we realized actually, no, we haven't. We're pretty much where we were. The pay gap is maybe not so much. I read somebody, a Hollywood film star, who says, she's quite happy with the pay gap because it means only $5 million less than what the leading man gets. And I wish we could talk in those figures, but for us, a pay gap is really an actual thing. There's a pay gap, there's a division of labor gap, there's a parenting gap, there's a gap in all our lives. And I think we were the first generation really to understand that because as I said, a gigantic con was played on us, and it was something that, we were told that, once you go out into the public domain, magically all your private responsibilities will be taken care of. They're not. And we're here today, we stand on the shoulders of so many women who really have helped us along the way. And sometimes I know it sounds very cynical and very sad and depressing, but sometimes I think really, was it worth it? I know L'Oreal tells you that you're worth it, but really, was it worth it? And should we go back to a simpler time rather than try and make men understand that they need to really pull up their socks and start contributing to our lives so that we can have a more equal life? And maybe there's hope in the next generation. I don't know. I've raised two boys. I don't see that much hope. But maybe I'm an anomaly and I was really a bad parent. And maybe this generation of men will be different and they will try and at least share the burden with the women they marry, the women they are related to, the women they're born of. And if that happens, I think then we'll have male empowerment, and women will just be happy to have that, male understanding. I wouldn't call it empowerment, they have too much power anyway. Male empathy, shall we say. I think rather than women empowerment, we really need to start a movement for male empathy, and I think I'd be happy with that, really.
Well, taking on from Kaveree, yes, this empowerment thing is a big con. And why should we be empowered? I mean, the whole idea is to be equal. Man or woman, equality is more important than empowerment of either of the genders. And yes, as she's explained everything, what, especially vis-a-vis the pandemic, we've seen, men are working, women are working more for the house, in the house, by the house, whatever. And if you looked at it, the very typical male bastions, like you have engineering, IT, all the typical male careers, architects, engineers and all. Maybe in 1995, the percentage was about 1% women. After so many years, 20 years or so, it's barely 5 or 7% women more. I'm just giving you an example of the Israeli defense, where the senior men officers were, that time 2,595, and today there are about 8,500 women. So not much. And if you look at places we call postmen, it's always a postman. Why not a postwoman? Or you have a driver, the bus drivers, the truck drivers, the train drivers. They're all men, postmen, drivers, and you have a bit of women in the call centers. But the reason for this is the women are not truly, if you want to use the word, safe or empowered in that way. Because Ola driver, I think there's only one Ola driver in India who's a woman, Noor Jahan. And she started a little school now with 25 women, but none of them are really driving apart from one or two. So the whole idea, and there's one best driver, I forget her name. She, in Bombay, she's the only best driver. She's a 24-year-old girl. But the whole problem is people look at you. Imagine a postwoman coming to deliver your letters. You'll all be looking instead of taking the letter as you never. So the whole idea is we have to make the environment more friendly, more empathetic, more safer. Whether it is in terms of transport, in terms of security, in terms of teaching the men not to look with weird, not to give weird looks, but to have more empathy. And that is how we do by raising our own kids. Hopefully, our kids, since as we are in the transition generation and we have been in that, semi-empowered women, that we do teach our boys, and the boys are definitely a lot more understanding. I'm sure you children are much more understanding. You've all helped your mothers and sisters during the pandemic in the household chores. But nevertheless, I think it's the whole mindset, and it's going to take a few more generations to change. Because even if, some men do help, it is on a very outer level, and this is only in the urban sector. In the rural sector, there is no word called. They don't even know what empowerment, so we are not even including them. But it will take a couple of generations for it to filter. So that's what I feel.
So yeah, for me, I don't know whether I'm playing the devil's advocate here or not, but for me, women they are empowered, and I prefer the word equal. That is the place that we want to reach. I think when a woman has no doubt of her self-worth, where she has no self-doubt, there is no guilt when she's doing something and she feels guilty that, am I doing this in exclusion of something else? When she is able to make a choice without, giving it 10 pre-thoughts that am I making the right choice? Is this right for my family? Will my in-laws be happy about it? Etc., etc., etc. So when she can make the choice, and the third is when she can be confident of making change in her own life and then extrapolating it to making a change to a larger community or to people around her, I think then a woman can be said that she is empowered or an equal, because I think it's high time we accept the fact that this is our reality where we are not. We are still at the very nascent stage of equality, empowerment, whatever word you might want to use. And I completely agree that our generation is the transition or the bridge generation where we want our own children to have those skill sets where, when they do get married or they're in a relationship, our daughters don't feel that, that it's the repetition or it's the same vicious cycle. So, of course, I mean, I would look at it more positively in terms of that we are trying, and we are the slow and steady speed is not very comfortable, I think, for any of us. We want modern speed here, but that's not happening for now. But I would say let's try harder. That's all I could say.
So for me, women empowerment would actually mean a level playing field. And luckily in media, as Kaveree and Nandita will also bear me out, we don't really have any kind of discrimination. I had women bosses all my life. And so that was good. In media, it's not there. I'd like to talk from the perspective of a new project that I'm working on, which relates to women in the army. And I just spent some time at an army establishment. In fact, it coincided with the news of NDA, women being allowed, girls being allowed to enter NDA. And you should have seen the reactions that I got from the male officers. In the thing. It was like just unbelievable. So when you're talking of a level playing field, the same exam, it's the same entrance exam, it's the same training. Even the Officers Training Academy in Chennai is exactly, the women cadets are supposed to do exactly the same thing as male cadets. But the comments that I got were, no, in the OTA, women cadets have, they have more pelvic fractures and then men. So I just said, okay, a woman who wants to join the army is not going to be deterred by a pelvic fracture. And then he said, no, if you're taking in terms of people who drop out or who find it difficult, you'll find the number is much larger in terms of women rather than men. So there's of course no study to back any of this. This was just their point of view. And they said things like, in any case, women, in the army, they're not allowed to go in for combat duty and, so infantry. So why even come in if you're not going to, you're kind of wasting a seat. That was one. Totally disregarding so many women who have reached very good influential positions. In fact, a friend of mine, of course she's a doctor, but she's a lieutenant general, a 3-star general in the army. So for doctors, they think that this is okay, but this is, for combat areas, not happen. And so this kind of patronizing attitude. And similarly, even in my last book on the ISRO women scientists, that's where, see, they do remarkable work, the women scientists, the ones, especially the ones who worked on Mangalyaan. That was the focus of the book. And all of them, barring none, told me at some point or the other of the interview, we're very grateful for the support of my husband, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law. So it's as if you couldn't have done it without the support. I'm waiting for a day when a man's success will be, somebody will ask him, so how much of the credit will you give to your wife, family, blah, blah, blah. Nobody ever asks a man that question. So all of these women, some of them even said, yeah, so, my in-laws allowed me to work late. So I worked 18 hours a day sending a rocket to Mars, and I was allowed to work late. So I'm waiting for that kind of parity. So especially in male-dominated areas, as I said, in media, one did not face that, at least I personally didn't. But in male-dominated areas like the army, like women scientists, they were less than 20% in ISRO is the actual number. And no woman who's head of a center. And of course, now you have project directors like Ritu Karidhar, she was there for Chandrayaan 2. And but it's a very, very slow process. It's extremely slow, and everybody is grateful for family support. Let's ask the men that question someday.
Yeah, so I'll get back. Yeah,
May I just step in here if it's
Sure,
okay?
please, of course.
It's so strange, Minnie, that you're saying this. And when you look at the actual work that is done in villages, when you see a farmer, you see a male farmer. But it's not true. 65% of our farmers are actually women.
Yeah.
And,
Absolutely.
that is actually the nature of work in our country, which is actually female work. I mean, the sowing and the paddy sowing, all that is done by women.
Absolutely.
But that's not the image one has. The image one has of work is a very masculine work, whether it's construction or whether it's farming. And it is so unfair to women because, we talk about the double burden of home and work. I mean, women in villages have been doing it for all their lives. They're cooking, they're going out onto the fields. They don't even have the facilities we do. So I think that whole idea of what work is and looking at it from a very masculine prism, that actually, once we realize that that is not true and that is the biggest con, then I think we'll start to appreciate what a level playing field is. And when I say field, I mean an actual field, an actual farm. So I think that's also important. And
Absolutely.
within this context, I'd also like to bring to your notice the fact that in the past 10 years, you've actually seen a decline of women in the workforce. I think it's gone down by 13% or something. That is extremely worrying, which makes you feel that when the economy is in decline, it's the women who lose their jobs first. They're the weakest link and the easiest to sack, the easiest to explain away, the easiest to make invisible. And that, I think, is again something that is so worrying, that when you look at in India in the 21st century and you see that the number of women in the urban workforce, and by that I mean, organized workforce, is declining, how much of exploitation must be happening at home? You see rise of mental illness, you see rise of domestic violence. All these things are all interconnected, nothing is an accident. So I think you have to look at everything within that context, what the nature of work is, how it's defined, what is the nature of family. Do we need a new kind of family for this new age? You cannot any longer have, just the mother being the primary caregiver. You have to have a new kind of caregiving. There's so many things. And when you look at the legislation of our country, it seems so wonderful. You have paternity leave and 6 months maternity leave. How much of it is actually, used? So until your families change, it's not that the woman is, controlling everything because she chooses to. She has no choice. I mean, otherwise the home will fall into pieces. Let me give you an example from Indra Nui's autobiography. She talks about this situation where there's no milk in the house. and her mother, she's just come back from an important board meeting, traveling, I think, halfway across America, and her mother tells us there's no milk in the house. So Indra Nui asks her, so, and her mother, huh? So Indra Nui says, so what should I do? The husband was there too. She says, no, you're the woman of the house, you have to go and get the milk. This is the former PepsiCo chairperson. But that is what we have done to ourselves. It's people like you who have to step up now and say, no, I'll go and get the milk in the house. Let the woman come home and put up her feet for a change.
I don't have to get
And people should clap for that statement.
No, I cannot.
Generally.
For me, I don't have to be told. I just have to be kicked out. Go and get milk. It's like that.
I think the basic. I think the basic mindset should change. Simple, whatever it is, men still somewhere, and it's not only in India, it's all over the world. Like I remember once my husband, someone had come to interview him, I'm for Gentleman magazine. So we had just got married and they asked him you believe in, giving your wife all the freedom? Yeah. I'm not one of those conservative men who like to, see that my wife carries a jhola and goes to the market and buys vegetable. So the interviewer, Alpana Chaudhary, said, but Omji, your view of women of carrying a thaili and going, he got so angry. And the fact that you just said chairman of a company, why can't it just be chair? Why should it be chairman?
Like actor, not actress.
No, chair, it's okay. And similarly, like everyone was an actor and actress in the old time. I don't know why suddenly everyone's become an actor. I still like to call, actress Meena Kumari, then actor Tapsi Pannu.
So before Sanjay takes off 1 minute, I have a point. I'm glad, thank you for the interaction. It makes my job much easier. Women empowerment, I have been going as a speaker like yourselves and have been moderating it also. I don't understand that why there are only women speaking on women empowerment. Yes. Why isn't Sanjay here? Why isn't Bharat over here? They are the ones who should be part of this. So we need them here. Yeah.
For science, like when I was researching the ISRO Women Scientists book, yes, the girls top. They top in 10th, they top in 12th. They also reach, graduation level. After that is where the gap happens. Because though your formative years, which, guys are there going around conferences, they're just concentrating fully on their career, the women are not. As soon as she's 23, finished graduation, her parents start looking for a boy. And once you get into the marriage, children, mommy track, then, you lose about 10 years straight away. Then you re-enter the workforce. Yeah. So it's a whole lot of actual numbers which are, so it may look as if they top in 10th standard and 12th standard, but after that there's a sharp decrease.
Even in engineering colleges today, if you go to a typical engineering class today, there are more than 30 to 40% girls, in that class today. In MBAs, maybe more than 60% or 70% at times, all right? So things,
I'm going to take that up.
My only point is,
going to take that up.
Things are improving.
Yeah, so let me take that up for you. Very simply, I'll say that yes, women are studying, which is thank God that they are allowed to take in their education as far as they want to go. What we're trying to say is that once they do reach the position, they still are answerable to do things in the house, which can be done by the counterpart who has come home, who is sitting in the house, but assumes that all this is your duty. So gender roles is what we're talking about, that we want to do away with those completely, wherein the next generation that comes in doesn't wait for the wife to come in and then go and buy the milk. I can forgive my mother-in-law and my mother to say this to me, because I know that there is something called internalized misogyny, where patriarchy as well, and women have this internalized misogyny which they can't get over. So they will keep telling their daughters, oh, it's your job to do this, it's your job to make the tea for your husband. Have you taken care of your husband or not? So it's in their mind. But what we're trying to say is that we want to do away with these gender roles where girls are meant to take care of the house and work, and men are only meant to work. So that is what we are actually talking about. Yeah. Yes. As I said earlier, that there is a slow and steady rise. However, it's not as fast. The pace is not as fast. Yes, absolutely.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to add a little bit. And I feel that, it takes a village to bring about any change or anything. And as women, we cannot wait for the men to really step up. We have to take it in our control. Otherwise, we will be waiting forever. We have to take things. However, where are the role models that we want our sons to look up to and to change? So we have to play that role too.
So we become the role models.
We have to, and and again, it has to come from all angles. We just cannot have one way. Men have to think differently, undoubtedly, as much as it is outside their comfort zone. We have to push it. Until and unless we don't push it, I doubt things are going to change, because obviously they are happy in their comfort zone. So we have to definitely work harder for that.
Yes, being at the top of the pyramid is a perfect, comfortable place to be in.
So, last year the pandemic has been so severely unkind to school-going children, girls, of course. And this is, we're talking about families where over many generations, maybe it was for the first time that the girl child of the family ever saw the face of a school. And she was the first one to be pulled out, whether she was a topper or she excelled in a subject or had exquisite skill or whatever. So this is true of rural, urban, across. It's a poverty thing, right? The other thing is a shocking image that has stayed with me of the pandemic. I take you back, all of you, back to it, is, and this is true of demonetization as well, the longest queues were not for masks, not for sanitizers, not for ATMs, they were for liquor shops. And the minute the shutters went up, the queues were mile long, and I felt bad for the men. They need the empowerment actually. They need the alcohol or the bottle of, X so bad that they can go to any length, and that story is wiped out. That is not discussed enough. That little money or the salary after demonetization or pandemic or lockdown, losing your job that you're getting, it's okay for you to blow it up over a bottle. And it's equally okay for the girl child to be pulled out of school, but your bottle is more important. This is not discussed enough. In one wipe, it straight away wipes out the futures of hundreds and hundreds of girl children and sets a horrible precedent that this is okay.
Please go ahead.
No, I think not just the girls, but also the boys. These 18 months, it's going on to 2 years. I cannot wrap my head around the fact that you will have a generation of kids who were going to school, say if they were 5, they will be going to school for the first time when they're 7 years old. How much of socialization, and it all comes back to the idea of gender roles, how much of that socialization that takes place in schools where we play with the boys play with girls, or whatever little interaction happens, at least something happens. How much of that is wiped out? And I mean, we will not even go into the digital divide and talk about online learning and all that. But I think this is really such a valid point, and it's something that all of us really need to think about carefully, that you have a generation that has gone into school that has no idea what school is like, what socialization with the other gender is like, what it's like to play with a girl, what it's like to sit with a girl, what it's like to talk to a girl, So I wonder what that is going to do. We'll have to do a lot of work as a society to overcome this gap. I think it's done a lot of harm to so many families in so many different ways. Yeah, men have of course also been deeply
Affected.
damaged, deeply affected, but women have really borne the brunt. I think even my friends here who are very vocal will agree with that. They've really borne the brunt of all that. And those liquor cues, what do they translate into? Domestic violence many of the times, and who suffers? Exactly. Who suffers the most?
When we talk about the woman empowerment, we are generally comparing the woman with the men's. But according to me, means there is some psychology that the women are not encouraging other women to go ahead. For example, a mother-in-law, especially we are facing the problem that mother-in-law don't want that her daughter-in-law go ahead because she is not able to give time at home. So when that psychology will get changed. That is the biggest problem that
I think the magic word here is role models. When women realize that supporting women is very essential, that is one. The second is because women are so underrepresented in most of the spheres, actually, it is a deterrent to the generations which are coming up. So only when women realize that they need to break through the ceiling, I won't say, but break boundaries and stick to the role that they want. So as I said earlier also, to be the ability to make a choice for yourself, whether it is for your career, whether it is to decide that, okay, I'm done with work and I want to stay at home. So without thinking of other people, making a choice for yourself, that is the second. And third is where women realize that it's okay to have self-doubt, where it is okay to feel like an imposter. Because most of the women who really are doing well for themselves do have self-doubt, do worry that, they've been historically asked not to be in that role. So when women are in that role, so it's like a vicious circle, because they keep feeling, am I doing the right thing? Do I need to do more to prove myself, etc.? They keep going back and forth in that, which again leads to the fact that they drop out. And with the pandemic coming in, we've already discussed how women were the first ones to lose their jobs. And so less women in the workforce, less women at higher positions, less role models, inevitably translates to it being bad for the younger generations who do want to do better. But because there's nobody they can look up to, they are unable to come forward. And so I think, to answer your question, I think I would say education, I would say strength, I would say support, I would say, yes. So role models, I think, just covers everything. Yeah.
So a gentleman has a question. We can't not have him ask the question.
So you know that too much talk on women empowerment is very stressing the actual women empowerment.
Is actually
Stressing the women empowerment.
No, I don't agree with you. Your question is not very clear, sir. But I like to answer that, if I may. We need to talk it out. We need to understand. We need, yes, it is not stressing it out. I think we have to bring it out in the open. Educated ladies, uneducated ladies, we all have this issue in one measure or the other. And it's not stressing it out. It has to be put out. The men also have to know what we are going through.
I think it is.
And it's not
is creating a kind of resistance among the males.
This is
not about male versus female. That's not the idea.
Yes,
The idea is not male versus female. That is not what we are trying to promote, project, or say. What we are trying to say is, give us equal footing. Give us a place to put our foot without bringing in so many, what can I say, filters, or so many benchmarks which we need to cross, so many hurdles that we need to because I come from a profession, I'm a judge in the Consumer Forum. It's a place where, as a woman, if I'm sitting on the dais, I have very senior lawyers coming and looking at me and thinking, oh, we know more than her. And it does take a lot of effort and a lot of confidence to sit there and face them and make them understand that you deserve to be sitting on that chair and you worked like crazy just to be sitting here. So you can see the look in their eyes. Oh, will she know? Would she be able to translate what she knows into her work? So as I always say that my pen has to be mightier than my voice. And that is how, you change mindsets. And so it's not about male versus female, not at all.
Just one point here. Sorry. See, I'm saying sorry so many times. No man would ever say that. But just one point here. No, open the door for us. Now, don't make us smash it open. Open the door nicely with gallantry, chivalry, and just let us see the outside world. Don't make us smash every door and window to get to where we do. That's all.
Subscribe to Nation Next YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get regular updates from Nation Next. Also like Nation Next Facebook page and follow us on Instagram and Twitter.